I love new lenses. What's up YouTube, Jerryland here with NOBA Tech. This past weekend I had my first professional wedding shoot, so I finally had a chance to test out my Sony long-range zooms and bring you coverage and let you know which one I think is the best. Again, this video is just about my personal opinions and we're focusing mainly on video. Today we have the Sony 70-200 f4, the 70-300 f4.5 to 5.6, and the Sony 24-240 f3.5 to f6.3. Let's find out which one you guys should get. So it seemed like quite a lot of you loved my Battle of the Sony Wide Angle Zooms video, and that was helpful to quite a lot of people. So I thought maybe a long-range zoom lens battle would be just as helpful. So right off the bat, let's just get straight into pricing. From smallest to largest, we got this one, the 24-240, coming in at around $1,000. This guy, the 70-300, the newest lens, coming in at about $1,200, and the 70-200 is about $1,400. But to someone looking for a professional long-range zoom lens, $400 difference isn't that bad. So let's figure out which one's gonna be best for you. Like I said, I had my first wedding shoot this past weekend, so let me tell you how I use these long-range zooms and which one was most useful for me in my situation of having a run and gun, and if switching out lenses was really that useful, or was it easier to just have one all-around lens. So stick around to the end and we'll make sure to tell you which one I think is the best one. So one of the most obvious things to talk about in terms of long-range zoom lenses is range. So these are all pretty self-explanatory: 70-200, 70-300, and 24-240. But what's important is checking image clarity, image quality, checking the f-stops on it and how that makes your bokeh look, even though it's f4 or all the way up to f6.3. I actually was able to get some great bokeh out of all three of these lenses at a very long zoom range, which is fantastic because we all know that the 70-200 f2.8 that's about to drop, a lot of us can't afford that guy. So let me tell you a little bit about these guys. If you are someone who's looking for pure range and you don't have something like the ARX 10 Mark III, which gets you to like 600 millimeters or something crazy like that, well, you'll probably want to go for this one. This is the 70-300, and obviously out of all these ones, it gets you the furthest. But if you're someone that's looking for all-around versatility, the 24-240 is the perfect lens for you. If you're someone who, for example, would love to have a long-range zoom, but you'd like to cover your mids, also some of your wides, this is actually a really good lens, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But let's say you're a professional wedding videographer or videographer in general, or you're getting into that business, or if you're trying to become a sports photographer or wildlife photographer, the 70-200 is a tried and true lens. One of my favorite things about this 70-200 is the fact that it's smaller than most of the other 70-200s out on the market in terms of length as well as diameter. So let's just go in order of lens and we'll weigh pros and cons of that specific lens so that you can learn about each one individually, and then at the end, we'll get a comprehensive summary and which one I like the most. This is the 24-240. It retails for about $1,000, like I said, and this one is a pretty good lens. It's nice and small. It's not too heavy. It's got a little bit of weight to it. You can look up the exact tech specs of how heavy it is, but it's got a range of 24, which is pretty wide because this is a full frame lens, and it goes all the way to 240 millimeters, which surpasses the 70-200, so that is really good. The f-stop is not constant, but it's not that bad either. It's 3.5 at its fastest and all the way down to 6.3. So at 240, 6.3, it still wasn't that bad. In direct sunlight, I was still able to get some great bokeh out of this lens. This guy also has optical steady shot, which is great if your camera doesn't already have in-body image stabilization. The filter thread is 72 millimeters, which is pretty common, not that bad. And since it's so small, unfortunately, it is a lens that extends. And what I noticed is that there's not really any lens creep, which is great because I'll tell you now, the lens I'm filming on is the 16-35 full frame lens from Sony, and that guy creeps and I hate that. So that's why I really like when lenses have a lock on it, or they're just tight enough where it won't creep out if I'm holding my lens like this, or if it's on a shoulder strap like this won't slowly go like this. So it's pretty good that it's nice and tight, but that means that when you're turning your zoom ring you gotta give it a little effort as well. Other than that, the zoom and focus rings are both a nice rubber texture that I actually really like. I prefer the rubber zoom rings over the metal zoom rings. Just a personal preference though. Comes with a pretty standard tulip hood, but this lens doesn't come with any carrying case. And that's a little bit about the 24-240. So now a little bit about the 70-300. This new nifty little lens that just came out comes with a little carrying pouch. I'm not gonna say case, because this is just a little drawstring pouch, fake leather, slightly hard bottom, probably cardboard in there, but it's nice nonetheless to get a little pouch. And this is what this guy looks like. It looks pretty similar to the 24-240 actually. Size is a little bit larger. I definitely love that this is a matte black color. The metal on this body actually looks like the metal that's on the A6300 or the A7S II. It's got that slight texture on it that looks just like those camera bodies. And I'll mention that this is a G Master lens, so it's not just a regular Sony lens. This is G Master. So for this one, we have a round lens hood, not a tulip styled lens hood. This is the 70-300, and it's got an f-stop of 4.5 to 5.6, which is a little slower than the 24-240, but at the long range of 300, it's a little bit faster than the 24-240. So you give a little and you take a little. So you got a little focus hold button on here, just one, which is nice, whereas this guy we'll talk about in a little bit actually has 3 of them. So for your different hand positions, that's pretty nice to have 3, but this guy's got 1. The zoom ring is massive on this guy. It's definitely bigger than on the 24-240. And again, the zoom and focus rings on this guy are rubber, which I definitely like. And what's cool about this lens, to prevent lens creep, it's got a little lock button on it. So I absolutely love that it has this lock ring, but I hate that it only locks when you're down at 70 millimeters. I'd love to be able to lock it when I'm at 135 or 200 or 300, so I don't accidentally zoom it or I don't accidentally let it creep when I'm trying to keep at that focal range. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, so we get a lock button, but only at 70 millimeters. I would have loved if it stayed this long always, but it still zooms outwards, so you do get an extending barrel, but having it extend out like that isn't that big a deal, so whatever. Aside from that, the zoom and focus rings are nice and smooth, and we also have a couple switches on here. I will mention that this also has optical steady shot, but we actually have an autofocus manual focus switch right here. We have a full or infinity to 3 meter switch right here, as well as optical steady shot on or off switch. This also has a 72 millimeter filter thread, and in general, I got some amazing shots out of this guy. I was especially surprised in low light. This guy did really well. I don't know if it's because it's a G Master lens or if there's some special coating on it or something like that, but in general, this guy just performed really well in low light. It's one of the newest lenses, so if that's what you're looking for, there you go. All right, so last but not least, we have the Sony 70-200 f4 lens, and this guy comes with a little pouch as well. I will say that the leather and the bottom feel about the same as this pouch, but this drawstring is a lot higher quality and a lot thicker than this one. This one's just like a crappy little shoelace, or worse than a shoelace, but this one feels like a nice thick string, and that might matter to some people, so there you go. So, taking it out, this guy is the classic professional videographer or photographer looking white lens or cream lens that everybody talks about. A lot of people like that it's this cream color, but I was never a huge fan of this because it just stood out, you know? And I prefer being discreet, being minimalistic, but actually, to be honest, it's kind of growing on me. So take a look at this. So it's got a round lens hood, but this lens hood is cream colored. You actually got some soft felt material on the inside of this lens hood. That's pretty cool. Aside from that, you can see that the body of this lens is really not that big if you compare it to the 70-300. It's just slightly longer compared to the 24-240. It's still not that much bigger. And the fact that this guy is actually smaller in diameter than this guy and about the same as the 24-240, but actually probably a little bit smaller as well. That's my favorite part about this lens. When I went to do my research on the 70-200, I was always nervous because they all look so big. They all felt so big when I was holding the Canon ones and whatnot. And when I went and saw the Sony one, I was in shock because this guy is tiny. And I love that because 70-200 is a great range for any videographer or photographer to have in their arsenal. And this guy is just an amazing lens. Even at f4, I get incredible bokeh on this. This is constant f4 on this lens, which is amazing. Again, this guy retails for about $1,400. It also has a 72 millimeter filter thread. and it has 1, 2, 3 focus hold buttons. The zoom stays internal, so it doesn't creep out. Check that out. That's awesome. And then the focus ring is nice and smooth as well. So the focus ring is now on the front, and the zoom ring is on the back, unlike these other two lenses, which is whatever. I actually think I kind of like that more. So this guy also has optical steady shot, and it also has a few little switches on it. We got an autofocus manual focus switch. We have a full to infinity to 3 meter switch. We have an optical steady shot switch. And lastly, we have a mode 1 and a mode 2 switch. So other things about this body, you'll see that it comes with this nice little stand here that is also actually a really great grip. When I have my camera body on this and I'm walking around, I actually really like holding it from here. And this is removable. You can twist this off and remove it so the lens becomes even smaller. But this is a little tripod mount right here. And this allows you to mount the lens onto your tripod instead of your camera body so that it can be slightly more balanced out. And that makes total sense, and that's a great feature to have. So that instead of having your tripod and your camera be extremely front heavy, now everything's balanced right there in the middle. So let's talk about image quality of this guy. When I was at the wedding, this guy was an incredible lens. Obviously, I didn't want to keep switching lenses during important parts of the day, like during the ceremony or during speeches and whatnot. But when I had this lens on, this guy's a pretty killer lens. So now that we got all the specs out of the way, now it's time for some personal opinions. This guy was my favorite lens of the 3 to use. As someone who's running and gunning, who's trying to get every perfect shot right then and right when I need it, this guy was incredible to have. From 24 all the way to 240, that is a humongous range to be able to have, and 24 is still pretty wide. So this guy I was able to get through almost the whole entire day on, basically, and just be totally fine with it. I wish that this was a constant f4. That would make this lens incredible. I would have paid the extra 400 bucks that this constant f4 is. Now, this guy. This was actually my second favorite lens because I like that it didn't extend, because I like the image quality that came out of this, I like the weight of the lens, and I like the features of this lens. Now this lens, even though it is my 3rd place lens out of these 3, that does not mean that this is not a great lens, because 70 to 300 is an incredible range. It's awesome to have a whole 100 millimeters more than this and a whole 60 more than this. And the fact that it's only f4.5 to 5.6 instead of 3.5 all the way to 6.3 is amazing. This guy also has a focus hold button. This guy has that sleek black color, and the pricing is right in between these other 2 lenses as well. So if you're looking for pure range to get the furthest you can, this is the lens I would recommend. If you're looking for an overall long-range zoom that's tested and loved and that has a ton of features, this is it. But if you're looking for that one all-around lens, if you can only afford one lens and you're looking for a wide one, a mid-range one, and a zoom one, the 24 to 240 is the way to go. This is a great lens, it's a great all-around lens, and out of these 3, this is probably the one I'm gonna be choosing for myself. So it all boils down to what you need this lens for. Do you need it for the absolute longest range? Do you need it for an overall long-range zoom? Or do you need a overall wide-angle 2 long-range zoom lens? Aside from that, it obviously also depends on your price range. And to be honest, it also depends on your personal preference. Who cares what those other people say? If they're gonna be haters, they're gonna be haters. But do you like to keep it sleek with a matte black, or do you like this cream-colored professional looking lens? If you're a tourist and you go out a lot, you'll probably wanna be a little bit more discreet with these guys. If you don't really care that much, you do a lot of professional video work, and you protect your equipment, this is it. Aside from that is size and weight. I gave you my opinions, but I'll leave it up to you guys. If you're in the Sony ecosystem right now, let me know what lenses you currently have and what lenses you hope to get. And also, out of these 3, tell me which one you like the most. Let's discuss. If you have any other questions, or if there was something I wasn't able to cover, feel free to drop a comment below. I try to read every single comment and reply back to all of them, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm here to help. I have all my social media links down below, and I'll also make sure to post links to all 3 of these lenses for you to go check out and go maybe buy for yourself down below as well. Hope you guys enjoyed that video footage. I have a new YouTube account I just made for my professional video work, and like I said, I just finished my first wedding shoot, so video is probably gonna drop on that channel really soon. I'll make sure to drop that new channel's link in the description below, so make sure you guys go subscribe. Go support my second channel, and let's try to get that channel to 20,000 subscribers in no time as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If this video was helpful to you, make sure to click that like button. My name is Jerry Land with NOBA Tech, and to the next one and beyond.